Natasha's new doll. Once upon a time in Russia, there lived a little girl called Natasha. Her father was a woodman, and each day when he had gone to his work in the nearby forest, Natasha helped her mother about the house. One morning as they were busy, a boy from the village brought a letter. When Natasha's mother had read it, she said, "It's bad news. Your grandmother is very ill, and I must go to her at once. You will have to be a brave girl and stay here by yourself until father comes home this evening." She made some sandwiches for Natasha's lunch and then unlocked the big chest that stood in the corner of the room. Inside, Natasha could see lots of clothes. There were blouses and skirts and dresses with wonderful patterns. Some of them she knew were very old. From the bottom of the chest, her mother took a little wooden doll. She had a painted face and black wool hair. "This is Anna," she said. "She once belonged to your grandmother. Look after her well, for she is no ordinary doll." After her mother had gone, Natasha sat by the warm stove with the new doll on her knee. The house seemed very quiet and empty, and Natasha longed for the evening when her father would be home. Outside, the sun shone brightly, and suddenly she had an idea. She would put on her warm coat and boots and go to find him. When Natasha was ready to leave with Anna in her arms, the little doll spoke up clearly and brightly. "Take with you the sandwiches your mother made, in case we are hungry on the journey." Outside, she could see clearly in the snow the prints of her father's big boots. Natasha knew that if she followed them, she would easily find him. At first, she tried to put her own small steps in the steps of her father's big ones, but her legs were too short, and the snow was so deep she soon became tired. She plodded on and on, not noticing how dark the sky was getting, when a snowflake fell on her nose. She looked up and saw that the sky was full of them, dancing and floating above her head. "We must find shelter," said Anna, so they stood under the spreading branches of a giant fir tree. There no snow fell, but they could watch it all around. At last the snow stopped falling, and Natasha realized that she would never find her father now. The footprints were completely covered. "Oh, Anna," she said, "what shall we do? How shall we ever find our way home?" The doll said nothing, but she pointed through the trees. That must be the way, thought Natasha, and she set off once more. On and on she walked, and the forest grew darker and darker and thicker and thicker. When she saw a strange house, tall trees grew on either side, and all around was a fence over which vines were curling. In front was a gate which she tried to open, but the hinges were so stiff with rust that it would not move. "Try some butter," said Anna. Natasha took a sandwich from her pocket, wiped some butter off with her finger, and rubbed it on the hinges. The gate had never been greased before, and it was so pleased that it swung open easily. Natasha walked up to the door and knocked. It was opened by a little old woman with a big nose and a pointed hat. "She looks like a witch," thought Natasha, but she tried not to show that she was frightened. "Can you help me, please?" she asked. "I am lost." "You must be lost indeed," said the old woman, who was in fact a witch, "to call on me." And she took Natasha by the arm and pulled her inside. "Now make yourself useful," she said. "Start by sweeping the floor." Natasha tucked Anna safely into her pocket and began to sweep. Swish, 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 swish went the broom. The witch, who planned to cook Natasha and eat her, went out to collect firewood. Every once in a while she stopped and listened. From the house came the swish, swish of the broom, so she knew that Natasha was still working. As she was sweeping in a dark corner, Natasha was surprised to see two sad eyes watching her. Tied to a chair and looking very miserable was the witch's cat. "Untie her and give her a sandwich," whispered Anna. Natasha did so, and the cat, who had never been treated kindly before, began to purr happily. But Natasha was frightened, for she knew that when the old woman returned she would be very angry. "What shall I do now, Anna?" she asked. "You must continue sweeping," said the doll, "but as you do, keep looking out of the window and tell me if you see the witch." Natasha did as Anna told her, and suddenly she realized the witch had moved out of sight. "Good," said Anna, "then this is our chance to escape." Natasha dropped the broom and ran from the house as quickly and quietly as she could. The gate opened easily, and soon she was away into the forest. When she had gone, the cat picked up the broom and began to sweep. Swish, swish, so that the witch thought Natasha was still working. When the witch finally returned and found Natasha had gone, she flew into a terrible rage. She snatched up the broom and tried to hit the cat, who fled from the house through the gate and into the forest. The gate slammed shut behind her. The witch followed, but when she reached the gate, it would not open. And when the vines which grew by the fence began to climb upwards, and the tall trees bowed down their branches to meet them, and they formed a net so strong that with all her magic the witch could not break through. Realizing that she had been tricked, she rushed back into her house to prepare a terrible spell for Natasha. Natasha ran on and on through the forest, not caring or seeing where she was going. Bump! She had run straight into something. It wasn't a tree. It was softer than a tree. She looked up, and there, smiling down at her, was her father. When he had heard her story, he went straight to the witch's house and began chopping down one of the largest trees. Inside, the witch worked her spell, but before she could finish it, the tree came crashing down on top of the house, smashing it into tiny pieces. The sound echoed through the great forest. Then all was silent, and the witch would never be seen again. Natasha showed her father her new doll, and he looked pleased. He picked them both up and put them on his shoulder, and soon they were home, and there a surprise awaited them. Grandmother was now feeling better, so Mother had returned, and sitting at the table with her was the witch's cat.